Welcome to Tea with Frankie. This is our very first mukbang. We're doing mukbang in a movie. Tonight, we watched The Apartment in honor of it being New Year's. And so we thought we'd ring in 2019 with our very first mukbang.
It is being really difficult.
Can we try? Let's see what happens.
You got me jumping.
Our champagne tonight is compliments of the podcast Damon All to Hell. We had the honor of filming them a couple weeks ago, and this was a gift they gave us for the new year. So we thought it was most appropriate to drink it with our first mukbang.
Exactly.
Yep.
Especially with the movie.
Yes. Tonight's dinner is inspired by the movie. We did not have a tennis racket to strain.
Nope. We just had an actual strainer.
Yep. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Austin, would you like to begin and tell us a little bit about the movie while I serve up the food?
Sure. It was, I believe, the Apartment was made in 1961, the same year as Psycho. It stars Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine and Fred McMurray, who was also in Billy Wilder's film Double Indemnity with Barbara Stanwyck.
Who's amazing.
Which is also an incredible film.
On a side note, tonight's dinner is vegan pasta with vegan cheese, which is a cashew nutritional yeast type of cheese, and garlic bread. All inspired by the film.
Mm-hmm. Though, unlike the film, I don't think either of us are going to get punched by a unhappy brother-in-law.
That's the hope.
Yeah, well.
One never does know.
Yeah. We could have guests.
I'm so hungry.
Mm-hmm.
First meal of the day.
Yep.
Why not wait till the end of it? It's New Year's.
Yep. It's a lazy New Year's.
Lazy New Year's.
Yep.
Your friend's coming over in an hour. We have a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you want to talk about the film a little bit, right? Where do you want to begin? Do you want to give the story of the film, like what it is, like give anybody kind of the idea of the plot if they haven't seen it or if they would like to see it?
Go watch the film. I think we don't need to give a plot.
All right.
Go watch The Apartment, starring Shirley MacLaine and Jack Lemmon. It's on Amazon Prime right now. It's fantastic. Mm-hmm. It'll make a lot more sense if you've seen it. Mm-hmm. Should we give a tiny little plot?
Yes, give a tiny little plot. Okay.
Basic plot line is, it's called The Apartment because Jack Lemmon is a lower management, not even management really, a worker bee in a big office building, and his bosses basically need to use his apartment as a means to
have affairs.
Have lots of affairs.
Yeah, he has a really nice apartment in the Upper West Side,
New York City,
and the people that he works for trade favors with him. They give him good reports, and he gives them a place to have affairs. Mm-hmm. It's a very copacetic and easy relationship that he finds himself in, except for, in winter months when it's rainy and he has to stand outside his apartment waiting for them to leave.
Mm-hmm. Wrap it up.
In which they don't really treat him very well. They denigrate him at every chance that they can, and any time that he's not working exactly in the way that they want him to, they make fun of him or just try to make their lives better and his life worse.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a really fantastic film from the perspective of a worker bee. Mm-hmm. The other main character is Shirley MacLaine, who is the the elevator operator that Jack Lemmon is in love with. And that's sort of, I don't want to tell any more than that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it'll come up in our conversation.
Yeah, that's true. We can spoil it because now you're supposed to go watch it.
It was made in 1961, and really, if you haven't seen it, and it's spoiled for you,
that's on you.
What are you going to do about that?
That's on you.
Uh-huh.
Go watch it.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's talk about the things that we loved about the film.
All right. You want to begin? I think that one of the most amazing things about the film is the composition of the film. There's a lot of scenes that are shot very, very wide in the sense that you can see a lot of the screen all at once and a lot of things happen. It allows for us to see both how characters interact with each other and how other characters who are not maybe in that conversation interact with the conversation that they're overhearing, without us cutting away to close-ups of people to be like, here's what this person thinks, and then we cut back to a scene that may not have anything to do with what that last take entailed. We get to see the actors perform in action, in one take, in one simple master shot.
The shot after he interacts with the doctor that lives down the hall, his neighbor. Is that beautiful shot. First, the two of them chatting in the hallway, and then you get the wide shot of the apartment, and you see the doctor still in the hallway, still communicating with Baxter, C.C. Baxter, which is Jack Lemmon. And then you see the pan across of the kitchen and the bedroom, the main
the apartment
of the apartment, the bedroom. It's just really beautifully shot, and it's shot in black and white, which was not necessary at the time. It was 1961. There's plenty of color film, but as I understood it from reading one of Ebert's reviews, the reason they chose that Billy Wilder, the director, chose to shoot it in black and white was because he didn't want the colors of the holiday season. This takes place over the course of a few months. It starts with Halloween. It ends with New Year's. And the colors of the holiday season he thought would be too positive and exciting and invigorating. And so he shot it in black and white so that all that was muted, which was sort of the feeling of the souls of the characters. Muted.
Yeah. And I think also all of that sort of that choosing to do in black and white and the construction of the film is really interesting, because there are times like in visual language of film, like it's like you tell a different story if you're looking directly at somebody's face or if you're looking at somebody's profile. And at times when the production team chooses, I think, as well as the director, chooses to go to a profile shot, especially near the very, like in the third act, near the very end, when Fred McMurray, the boss, the head boss, is talking to Jack Lemmon. We've seen him from the front a lot, but there's a scene where they talk and they're giving information to each other, and they are both in profile. And I think the choice to shoot it in profile at that time is really interesting, because like we know all their hidden secrets, but yet part of their faces are hidden. So they're hiding something from each other, which tells us a story that is maybe extraneous, or maybe not extraneous. It's subtext. They're telling us a subtextual story to their relationship while they're also explaining the rest of the plot, or pushing the plot forward with their actions.
When we were talking about the film earlier, you mentioned that Shirley MacLaine might be the original manic pixie dream girl.
Or at least one of them, like a prototype.
But what's interesting about her character is that she's not without agency. She has very specific goals in mind. She is not able to become a secretary because while she can type really fast, she can't spell. She has to end up working in the elevators, operating the elevators, and she's obviously very smart and very charming and can do a hell of a lot more than that. But this is the 1960s, and women don't have a lot of opportunities then. And so I just thought it was really interesting, the fact that her means to try to raise up herself, bubbles in the champagne, are making us burpy. So you're going to have to deal with that. It's a mukbang. What's interesting about that is that her means to rise up she's not choosing to sleep with the boss because she wants to raise herself up, but she does want to improve her place in society. She's stuck living with her sister and her brother-in-law, which doesn't indicate that they don't have a happy relationship, but it's not indicated that they are super tight.
Right.
They're sort of not really talked about, so it implies that it's not where she wants to be.
With you even bringing it up right now, it's kind of interesting to me that like the upward mobility that the men have in the film is free-flowing. Like they can do whatever they want. But the jobs that the women at the office in which they work in have is either, elevator operator, secretary, or telephone transfer person.
I think telephone operators.
Yeah. Telephone operators.
Right.
They're very contained. Like there's nothing
that jobs around.
There's nothing that they can do to move out of their position. Like literally, Shirley MacLaine's job is to go up and down.
Yeah.
Like, and that matches her kind of emotional story as well. Like, she goes up and down in the film. Like, she's down with the person that she used to be in a relationship with, the Fred McMurray character. Then she's up with him again because he wins her back, and then she's down because of he's a married man who's lying to his wife, and then
I'm the wife. That's the other role you can be.
Yeah,
wife.
yeah, and they're very like their stories are very contained, or their opportunities are either contained by structure, like societal structure, or like actual spatial structure. She can't, like, when she's brought out at a Christmas party from her elevator, she chooses to she wants to stay in her elevator because that's her safest space. And Jack Lemmon pulls her out. Fired. Right, she doesn't want to get fired, which is obviously, but like kind of in this subtextual level, it's kind of interesting that she gets pulled out and she finds out vital information about her relationship and the lack of, ability for it to actually grow into something else from somebody who also had a relationship with the boss years and years before and have seen multiple people come through the boss's door, or be branch managers from Seattle or Des Moines. Yeah. And so, like, the only time that she comes out of that elevator at work, she really is getting punished by the information that she's found. And so I just find it interesting that there's a level of containment in the film for the female characters who rush out at times to join the real world. But for the most part, in the workplace, their place is defined by a contained area.
I would argue that it's not just the women, though it's primarily the women. It's like kitty scratching. That it's also anyone who's an underling. So C.C. Baxter is also confined by his giant floor of coworkers that are all sitting there at matching desks.
In an open space layout. Just huge, like aircraft carrier type of space.
Yes. He's confined by that, and then he's confined by his office, then he's confined by his apartment, and then he's confined by not being allowed to be in the apartment. And it's not until he has his own office and a door.
Something that I'll attribute to Howard Hawks. He once said that a great film is 3 great scenes and no bad ones.
Okay, then let's play the game of what are the 3 great scenes of the apartment.
Yeah, and are there any bad ones?
No, there are no bad ones.
No.
They're all perfect.
They're all practically perfect?
Yeah, the only problem is that it's severely lacking in diversity. Right? It's just... But that's okay. This is the beginning of our discussions of movies, and we will definitely be seeking a very diverse range of cinema. It's not okay that it's not diverse, but it is 1961, and white America ruled cinema. So
it still does.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so let's talk about the 3 great scenes. What are the 3 great? Which ones do you think are the 3 best? Which one do I think are the 3 best?
I started with you.
Okay, so I picked the first.
Yep. Can't just turn it around.
Somebody didn't do their homework.
All right, well...
Okay, wait. I'll pick the first. One of my favorite scenes, one of the great scenes, is when he's... I don't know how to say it's a scene. It's just the whole element of him taking care of her. So I guess if I pared it down to one, it's the razor.
After the suicide attack.
After the suicide
attempt.
I think for me, one of my favorite moments tied into a scene is the razor. It's the fact that he is told by the doctor that she may try again. Suicide attempts are often repeated. When he finds his razor blade, when he goes to shave because he's all scruffy from the overnight of taking care of her. So it's like scruffy from overnight of taking care of her, so there's so much affection there. Going to clean up because he wants to look good for her. Goes to try to shave, forgets that he has already taken apart the razor and had taken the blades out when he'd gone into the bathroom to find her toothbrush. Right? Yeah. And so he goes to shave and he discovers that he
also takes all the pills from another container.
And he hides it in his pocket. So that moment when that gets played out when he first takes away the blade, and then when it comes out later when he goes to try to shave and there's no blade in his razor. That beauty of that moment, of that payoff. It's just so... It reminds us of how much he's taking care of her.
Yeah, that sort of care... Cat attack. That sort of care is also something that is shown early on in the film. Like when he's sitting at his desk the first time we see him, he's watching his typewriter and he's moving his head to the rhythm of the typewriter, moving across and then back. And there's a sense of like a very lived-in quality in which I think Jack Lemmon as a performer generally was really good at. And part of the reason that he's reviled he's loved as an actor because he just felt like he was somebody that you could know, his character goal or his character arc in the film of becoming a mensch it is something that you generally kind of feel about Jack Lemmon in general, that he's a good person, like a human being. And the things that he does, like how he works in his kitchen, like all of these things, all this seeming minutia, but actually very clear character work or very clear artistry, so that when we get to the moment that he's taking the razor blades and putting them in, you know that he'd be a person who would care this much about doing this and isn't somebody who's just that is being directed to do that in this moment. It feels very natural, very earned, I guess. Okay. What I would say is one of the best scenes for me is the scene that precedes him taking care of her, which is him and this
Margie,
who he meets at a bar while he's waiting for his apartment to become unoccupied because Shirley MacLaine's character and Fred MacMurray's character are using it for Christmas.
Yeah.
And he's at the bar, and we know how drunk he is because he has all the olives from all the martinis that he's bought in front of him. So he has 7, I think. Just an olive and a stick in like a half semicircle. And it's so clear this is how drunk he is. And she's across the bar blowing, unwrapping the ends of straws and blowing the paper straw at him, and he's just not knowing. And she eventually just gives up on that and comes over, tells him he will buy her a drink and she'll buy some music. Mm-hmm. And then the rhythm that the two of them have while talking about things that neither of them really care about, but they're both talking about so that they don't have to talk about the thing that they actually...
Their heartache.
Yeah, that they miss. And that scene is just so beautiful and sweet, and the actress whose name I don't know, which is a shame on my behalf, is just phenomenal. Like, she's just in 5 minutes of screen time, she's makes an indelible mark on the narrative of the film for me.
This is a mukbang, you have to eat more.
Yeah, well, this is helping number 3.
Well, this is mukbang, you're supposed to eat a lot.
Yeah, well. How many helpings are you?
1.
All right, well, you got to get to pasta.
I'm drinking all the champagne.
Well, it's not eating.
It's eating to me. What's actually interesting is bringing up Margie is fun because what you realize is how many women have strengthened their sexual desires. Mm-hmm. Shirley MacLaine does not stand for the sexual harassment that she gets at the office. She calls them out on it directly in front of everyone, and mocks the bosses that are picking on her, and they are sexually harassing her. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because she chooses the boss. I don't think she chooses the boss because he's the boss. I think that she chooses him because she's attracted to his power, because that's how it often works. But I do think that each person is making a choice to love whom they choose or have affairs with whom they choose. Now, whether or not there's a lot of sexism, and it is really clear that these women are getting fucked by a lot of these guys, literally and figuratively. But I still think that women have sexual... And the cat's in the shop. Rilke, get out of here.
I also think... And tell me what your thoughts are.
This is Rilke. She's your fatty. Down you
go. That the women aren't shamed for having these desires within the film. Mm-mm. None of the women who are
no.
It doesn't feel like they're sluts or anything in that regards. Mm-hmm. I think that the film makes a point of making fun of or calling Jack Lemmon's character out for being
a total whore.
Yeah, for being a whore.
Which he's not.
But sure. But I think that the film does a really nice job, or a really interesting job, of not slut shaming. Their desires for sexual gratification is not an offense. That's not the problem in the film.
In fact, when the secretary comes to tell Shirley MacLaine's Fran about the boss's What's his name? Shetland? No, that's not right. Anyway, Fred McMurray's indiscretions with other people that work in the office, other women, she makes it really clear that she's not shaming Fran. She's saying he's an asshole. He's a slut. It's not your fault. This is what he gives you the same damn storyline. It's the same booth in the back of the same Chinese restaurant and the same story. Ring a ding ding. And I think that's really cool because in this instance, women are supporting each other. In fact, the secretary is the one who calls the wife to let her know that this is happening. It's this strength of women working together versus working against each other, which you see so often in cinema and in real life.
Yeah, I mean, the only woman that's ever really criticized is the Marilyn Monroe type for being a Marilyn Monroe type.
But is she even critiqued, or is she
I think it's because Billy
objectified?
Wilder's. Well, I think it's because Billy Wilder's making a point about his unhappiness with working with Marilyn Monroe on the film before this.
What happened on that?
She apparently, according to legend, I don't know this for any sort of fact. According to legend, she had a hard time remembering her lines, so Billy Wilder had to tape them in like drawers or on top of surfaces, and then he would direct her to move to different places so that she could go to the place where the words were. She would say her line there and then move to another place. And he was just very frustrated that she couldn't remember her dialogue.
Like Marlon Brando.
Yes, very much like Marlon Brando. But instead of him being a genius, where he's looking up at the ceiling in The Godfather, because he was trying to find his lines.
He's interpreted as a genius, and she's told that she's a dumb hoe.
Yeah.
Interesting. Sexism in Hollywood. Who knew? You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we've decided that taking care of her scene and the scene before in the bar were the two of the best scenes of the film. So what's the third one? Would you argue?
I would say that the scene where he has to rearrange his schedule, where we get to see him go through his Rolodex and his while he's sitting at the desk, his Rolodex and his calendar, and he calls all the different men in the office who are using his place for their extramarital affairs. While he goes through that and sets up a new set of organizations, so that we actually get to see how clearly defined his relationship in the office space, his subservience, his desire to get ahead based on what their promises are, which truly he gets ahead because of their promises. Nobody else does. None of the women do. Nope. None of the women get any of the promises that they are made by these men, but he does. So we get to see that sort of set work, that setup work and how it works, so that we can then kind of follow what the process of the film is in that regard.
I would argue that my third scene I love that scene, but I would argue for the scene immediately following, when he goes into the office to meet with Fred McMurray. And that whole scene of him trying to navigate being attacked, being basically cornered into admitting that he's been allowing his apartment to be used for sex and affairs. And then having to... and thinking he's getting out of it. And being really excited to think that this is over. He doesn't have to do this anymore.
And relieved.
Because it's not what he wants to do. Still burping from the champagne. Champagne gives you the burps. And then having to rearrange his thought process as the boss is saying, nah, bitch, you're going to keep doing this, but it's just going to be for me. So guess what? Now you work for me. And what's fascinating about that scene, not just in the power play of it, and just the way that Jack Lemmon can handle being the underling, being lower down in the chair, like struggling with this moment, but his physical work with the he has the nose spray that he ends up squirting all the way across the room. He has the pen that he thinks he's pulling out. The boss asks to have his address written down, offers him paper but no pen, despite the fact that he's at his motherfucking desk. And so Jack Lemmon has to reach in, grab a pen from his pocket, and he pulls up the thermometer and he drops it all over the table, and his Kleenexes are everywhere. Like, it's just such a beautiful, like, physical creation that he's doing with all that. Like, he does so much work with the cold that he has.
Yeah.
That he got from being kicked out of his fucking apartment,
Mm-hmm.
from his damn bosses, who have no respect for him.
Mm-hmm.
So, I like that scene.
I think that's a really good scene. I think it might be even better to consider it as sequences, because those two sequences really work well together. Like that, as well as the sequence of how we build to Shirley MacLaine's attempted suicide, and the repercussions of that, and how much time we spend with that.
With her being healed from the doctor, so much time.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
And the doctor and his wife are just like such wonderful, wonderful characters.
What? Dreyfus. Dr. Dreyfus.
Dr. Dreyfus. And is it Mildred?
Mildred!
That they don't hide anything from.
I love every time that he has another person that is not him having sex with.
Mm-hmm.
Every time the doctor comes home, and it's always Mildred! Because you know they're gossiping about the neighbors. Because why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
If you had a neighbor that was banging 2 or 3 women a night,
you
would be talking about them all the time.
And the fact that he very blatantly asks C.C. Baxter for his body when he dies, which he believes will happen very soon.
Because of the alcohol consumption.
Yeah, that he will donate it to science because he wants to study it and see how he did it. Which is, like, it's just, like, for a film that, like, that the second act crux is basically a suicide attempt. It's an incredibly lighthearted and, like, very fun film for something. Yeah, like for something that's very, very dark feeling. Like if we were to talk about it just in those terms, or even to talk about just like the general, like as we have been, like the general sexism that occurs in this society and within this film, like there's a very dark place and harsh place and bitter place to come from. And Wilder did that in other films of his, but here it's just like there's this light touch of being like, well, our main character's goal is to become a mensch, become a good person.
A human being.
A human being. So why wouldn't we make the film about a kind of humaneness that we wish that we have? Like, we don't have it all the time. We're not always able to be the person that we want to be, but we're trying to be. And the film ends with him and her succeeding at being, at least in this moment, the type of people that they want to be. And if that's like if the tone tells me anything about the film, it's that it's trying to get us there and trying to remind us that we can get there, rather than saying, well, everything is kind of shitty and the world is really shitty and it's gonna be really shitty.
Yeah.
So
it has so much heart.
Yeah.
It's a film with it's just full of heart.
Mm-hmm.
The performances are incredible. Everybody just comes to the table with their A game.
Mm-hmm.
Every part of it is worth watching.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody comes to the table. The director, the cinematographer, the actors. Like everybody feels like they're trying to prove something.
Yeah,
which is helpful for the script. It feels, or the storyline. It feels like each person is trying to prove something, come to terms with who they are, grow up.
Yeah, and it's edited in a really
beautiful
and like a beautifully paced manner.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't, nothing feels too long or out of place, or doesn't like. And we didn't even talk about some of the props, like the wonderful mirror.
Oh, like, the broken mirror.
Like it lets me see myself as I am, not as how as other people see me, basically.
Right. Which is such, as I was saying to you before, it's such like how you feel as a kid when you're young, because she's supposed to be basically like 22, 23. Because he says, the brother-in-law says you're over 21, so we know that she's in the early 20s range. But that feeling you have when you're super young of just being, you're still so beautiful on the outside because you're still so young, but you're so fucked up in the middle. Your heart is messed up a million times. You're confused. You're emotional. You're trying to understand this big giant world that doesn't make any damn sense. And guess what? For anybody who's young, it won't when you get older either.
No, it still does.
But like you do feel like fractured, and so seeing that fractured mirror reflected back at you, especially with what she was going through, makes complete sense. And I just think it's interesting that probably, like right now where we are in our life, I feel like I match how I feel on the inside. Like it all feels like it matches up. And I think that as you get older, you probably are like, wait, no, I feel different on the inside than I feel on the than I look on the outside. So I don't know, we'll see.
I agree.
Things you're supposed to eat a lot, so I'm gonna eat a little bit more. This is what you're supposed to do, and also it's the only thing I've eaten today.
I'll never eat again.
Never today for the next hour at least before Joe and Ramo come over.
Can we call them Joe Ramo?
So Ramo. I don't feel like they would like that.
No, I don't think they'd like to be put into one person.
No, I don't think they would like that. However, maybe we'll do a mukbang with them. Because they're pretty fucking awesome artists.
Yep. All right.
But okay, wait, we were playing a game. And I need some my fake cheese, please. Fake cheese, please. Because I can't eat the real stuff and I wouldn't anyway. That's a lie. I grew up in Europe. I would eat a lot of cheese if I could. Okay, please pass me the cashews to replace the cheese. Minimalist baker for all those out there who are vegan or can't eat cheese. Look up her recipes, or because you want to eat healthy. Her recipes are awesome. I'll post them below if I remember.
You won't.
Which I won't.
No, well, you'll edit it, so you probably won't remember. At least it'll be here.
I'll know when I've edited it, and then I'll forget when I post it.
All right, fair. All right, so.
More champagne.
Last thing.
Okay. This is our favorite game. Ooh. If we were to make the movie today,
Who would you cast?
who would you cast?
Would the movie actually still work today?
Well, I, as I told you before, would really like to see this film redone. And as filmmakers, we can do that. I would really like to see this film redone from her perspective. Because I think the reveal when she wakes up from her suicide attempt and sees CC Baxter standing there, not the first time when she's with the doctor and she's confused, but when she wakes up in the morning the next day and realizes she's in CC Baxter's apartment, the guy she stood up, the guy who's been really, really sweet to her from the beginning, that reveal would be just a gut punch if we were coming from this whole film from her perspective. And I just would be so fascinated to see that film. It'd be a totally different film. It wouldn't be the apartment because it wouldn't be about the apartment. It would be about Fran. Fran Kubelik.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would totally do that film.
I think it's a really interesting idea to try to do it from her perspective. Hearing that, I think it would be very hard to make that reveal be everything that we want it to be.
Yeah.
You'd have to work very hard. You'd have to introduce a bunch of different types of suitors so that you don't just really tie on to him really quickly, because one of the things that this film doesn't do is give you any sense of surprise. It gives you reveals for the characters when they have information when they get information that we already have, and we get to see how they react to that information. But making a reveal about that would be a difficult task. I'm not saying that it's not worth doing or not worth trying. I think it's just
It'd be amazing.
I think it would be as you said, it becomes a different thing. It's not about a place.
No, it's about Fran.
Yeah, it's about Fran.
It'd be called Fran Kubelik.
Yeah. Or something better.
Yes, terrible last name.
Yeah. Well,
no offense if your last name is Kubelik.
Yeah, it's a terrible last name for a film. Title. Fran Kubelik.
It's a terrible name.
Yeah, I kind of like Kubelik. It makes me think of those Rubik's Cubes. Ooh.
Oh.
That's something you're solving.
Anyway. Okay. But let's recast it for today.
Right. After you.
I mean, hands down, the person I would cast as CC Baxter would be Stephen Young. Stephen Young. He was in Burning, which is a South Korean film I talked about before.
And Walking Dead.
Oh, he was in Walking Dead.
Yeah, he was
I
Glenn.
watched that show.
Yeah.
Okay, well, he was in Walking Dead for those of you who have watched that show, which does look a good show. I just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, most people probably have seen that show.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
I just think he's an incredible actor. Oh, Sorry to Bother You. He was in Sorry to Bother You. That's where I saw him first. And then we saw him in Burning like a couple weeks later, which was such a good film we should talk about before. Which I talked about before. And I just love him.
Yeah.
I think he's so charismatic, and I think he can play that character of CC Baxter with the body work and
I think
the physical comedy, but also kind of that like.
Yeah, I think he reads as an everyman really easily.
He is an everyman.
Just like he reads as somebody that you're like, oh, I recognize this person. I feel very at ease with this person.
Yeah.
In my life or on the screen. Like there's something very pleasant and well, everyman about him.
Perfect.
Yeah.
He's beautiful.
Yeah, he is a beautiful man.
It doesn't hurt.
No, it doesn't. Never does, really.
No.
Who else would you cast?
Well, we talked about casting George Clooney as the boss Because the idea of seeing him play somebody kind of that despicable,
using his charms in kind of a self-serving way instead of like basically skewering his persona that we've like grown to love ever since he was Dr. Ross or Dr. whatever
in ER.
Yeah. Like he's been for the last 20 plus years being our savior and our kind of like our heart in some way, and
the heart of America.
And like it doesn't hurt that we look at where we are in America at this point and go, oh, all these people that we used to think were incredible people are now proving to be fucking assholes, and like having somebody like that have his image skewered would be really interesting in a film like this.
Because it's not like, what was that film he did with Catherine Zeta-Jones? Where he was a lawyer.
Intolerable Cruelty.
Right. Not like that character, who's just kind of a dick.
It's a Coen Brothers film, so it's
that makes sense.
Yeah.
He loves Coen Brothers.
Yeah.
And the Coen Brothers love him.
Yeah.
And who doesn't? Their cinematography is amazing. But,
you can put a little ding there. Ding.
But, I don't know, I haven't seen him play a part like that before. Where he just, at the end of the day, just is a sucky human with no real redeemable qualities. And I think that would be really good for him. Plus, it would enable us all to be like, we totally get why Fran would fall in love with him and tolerate his behavior, and why all those other women would tolerate his behavior. Because we all understand George Clooney to be this kind of creature.
And it would need to be somebody of his kind of ilk, where we don't have a lot of baggage against him.
Negative.
Like it couldn't be Johnny Depp.
Nope.
Like it couldn't. You could almost get away with Brad Pitt, but we have the whole Brad Angelina thing.
Yeah,
but
right?
It's still like he's a good enough, like he's an attractive enough man that you'd be like, oh, I can see why. Like even if there's some red flags.
Well, George Clooney works because he is a trophy husband to an incredible woman.
Yeah.
And so therefore we're like, yeah, you get it. It's sort of like if Joseph Gordon-Levitt was older. When he's older, he can play that part. Yeah, so it's sort of a guy like that.
Yeah.
If we're going to play male, it could be female, but I mean, we're going to stick with the cis heteronormative.
Yeah, or the gender roles that are presented in the film as is.
And so then who would you have as Fran?
Well, I thought initially someone like Tessa Thompson would be really interesting. Like, she's also from Sorry to Bother You and Thor. Like, somebody who presents as someone who's a badass, but I imagine could really easily play wounded soul. Someone who fronts as tough and comes back as really like basically a crab. Like has all the armor, but you flip her and it's her, and it's just a soft underside.
Aww. Is she dating Janelle Monáe?
Yeah, or at least last time I heard.
I like her. She'd be amazing at that part. She would be so good. I would also be interested though in playing somebody older and having somebody in that role of underling who's been working really hard but just isn't getting ahead. And she's also the idea of her, and by older I mean like 39, 40, so that you're getting that sense of like biological clock is running out, the sense of like, I want this family, I want this partnership with this older man who's in his 60s. I don't know how old George Clooney is, but let's put him in his 60s for this character, or whoever it is in his 60s. So a woman who's a bit older and wants certain things and hasn't passed that mark yet, but is almost, and so the weight of dating somebody who was never going to fulfill the things they promised you is so much stronger than to somebody who's 22.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, wait, but I gave you these years. I donated this time to you, and you fucking lied to me. And now how am I supposed to... How do I get this? How do I start from zero again? And how am I still in this place? And I don't mean to be somebody who's broken. I think a strong woman would be really interesting, but I couldn't tell you who I would think of right now.
I'm having a hard time as well. Like,
Emily Blunt is too young.
Yeah, and I would say someone like Viola Davis, but I think that Viola Davis is like she would be more interested if you were going to gender swap things and
She would be the boss.
Put her as the boss.
Yeah, she's the boss.
Which
would be cool.
Or even Taraji B. Henson would also, or Taraji J. Henson, I think her name is. Would be also a very interesting boss in that.
DZ Baxter would be played by a woman, and Fran would be played by a man.
Yeah, like that sort of situation, or even like it can.
Or all women.
Yeah, or there could be more of a gender fluidity of like, or a sexual fluidity of who they're interested in.
Mm-hmm. I like that idea.
Because it doesn't have, like, with each one of those different choices, but the dynamics between everybody, between what they're afraid of or what they're interested in, shifts, and that plays in a different way than it does now, or than it does then, like what we would do with it now.
Do you know who I would also cast?
No.
For a younger part.
Uh-huh.
I don't know her name.
I love her work.
But she's my favorite.
She's really good.
So good.
What's her name?
Her.
That was great.
She's great.
Yeah.
No,
you just point at the screen and go, her.
That person.
Yeah.
No. The girl from Timeless. The young woman who plays the computer genius.
Claudia Dorment or something like that.
We'll look her up and I'll make her name across the bottom of the screen. But her.
Yeah.
I love her. I want to see her in so much stuff. I don't know why she's not in more things. She's amazing. She's perfect.
Yeah, she's great.
What else do I say? Well, I ate an absurd amount of food.
And there's still more, so you have to finish it. I'm just going to wait here till you do. I had 4 helpings. Go.
Okay. Here I go. Just kidding. I'm going to give it to the dog. And have crusties all over my shirt.
Eat it.
That was awesome.
Eat it.
I don't have anything else to say, do you?
Nor do I. Thank you very much.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the very first mukbang.
Yeah, movies
and
and
a
a
movie.
mukbang.
Yeah, mukbang and a movie. Movies and a mukbang. We haven't figured out the title yet.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we're going to do this. I don't know how often.
Yep.
It depends on how much we consume.
Mm-hmm.
And then decide that we feel ridiculously full.
Mm-hmm.
It does help with champagne.
It does. Champagne is great.
Happy New Year.
I'm really glad we had these cups.
I put them out because that's what they had in the movie. He had coffee cups put out on his china.
Oh, okay.
This is my grandmom's china.
And
It's really pretty.
You didn't want to just put it here for liquid.
Well, I mean, we could pretend we were going to drink coffee, but we're not. It's New Year's Day, so we're going to go drink more champagne.
Yeah, okay.
But
Fair.
I thought it looked pretty.
Well, I like your choice of aesthetic over use.
This is set deck, man. I got to do some art in this as well as elsewhere. I didn't clean up over here.
I'm sorry. Let me help
a
with the
hot
set deck.
mess.
This goes right here. And we do this like this.
I'm going to eat some more of that. Oh, I lost my napkin.
Oh,
Hey,
there it
Bumblebee.
goes.
Yeah.
We'll block this.
Okay. Anyway, you can quit that now. So thank you for watching our mukbang in a movie. We really hope you like the apartment. We will, in the future, if you guys like these, let us know what you think. And we will give you guys a heads up on Instagram what film we're going to do so that you can watch it ahead of time. Although it's a video, so you can pause it and watch it and then come back.
Yeah.
We'll try to pick films that you can access, right?
Yeah. And you have really all the control over
You do.
that.
You have control. This is
Yeah.
This isn't television. We're not that fancy, all three of you.
Not yet. Ever.
But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it and you had fun, and we certainly did. And we're gonna go drink some more champagne with our friends who are coming over in like 5 minutes.
Have a lovely night.
Good night. Happy New Year.